While the strategic Crimean peninsula continues to be the flashpoint in this crisis, tensions are also mounting across eastern Ukraine, closest to the Russian border. But the clashes between those who want an independent Ukraine and those who wish to be a part of Russia aren't necessarily along language lines. CCTV's Jack Barton is live in Donetsk. And Jack, what's the sentiment there?
Well, that's right, Mike. This is the home of ousted President Viktor Yanukovych, and it has been the epicenter of pro-Moscow rallies. In fact, government buildings here have changed hands several times over the past few weeks. The main administrative building, in fact, had a Russian flag on top of it from Monday to Wednesday when riot police finally moved back in, arrested 70 people there, including the group's leader, who calls himself the People's Governor. But it's also important to point out that pro-Ukrainian rallies have been more frequent and much larger, particularly north of here in Kharkiv, where many Russians speaking there have been at pains to point out that just because they oppose the ousting of President Yanukovych, doesn't mean they want to be a part of Russia.
On Kharkiv's main square, a handful of pro-Russia activists guard Lenin's statue. They don't like the new government, and some would be happy if eastern Ukraine were annexed by Russia.
If we talk about Russian-speaking people, we are not against dividing Ukraine.
Head away from the main square, though, and even though the Ukrainian flag looks a bit tattered, many Russian speakers are still flying it.
The situation is really difficult now, but we have to solve it independently, without any meddling into the internal affairs of our state.
These Russian-speaking women don't want to use their real names for fear of retribution. One calls the revolution a success. Her friend insists it's a catastrophe. What they agree on is that they are both Russian-speaking Ukrainians.
I want to visit Russia as a guest, and that's all.
The fear here of a military intervention is real.
We're afraid to lose our parents, to lose our freedom, to lose our time, to lose our life.
Local travel agency owner Irina Velichko was born in Russia and still loves her country of birth, but after many years here considers herself Ukrainian and wants it to stay that way.
So we need to stay independent, and we don't need Russian people in Ukraine who wants to separate us. We are the whole one strong country.
As the sun sets over Kharkiv, a crowd calling for Ukrainian unity gathers every evening to light candles for those killed in Kiev and listen to speeches. It's still the biggest show of hands in this town. Nearby, police guard the administrative headquarters, knowing pro-Russia demonstrators will return, though their demonstrations have been shrinking. Those supporters and opponents of annexation by Russia agree the stability of this region will likely depend more on decisions made in Moscow than Kiev.
Well, earlier in the week, Kremlin officials were here in eastern Ukraine meeting with officials here who would support annexation by Russia. And certainly the concern amongst pro-Ukraine groups here is that if any of those officials could seize power here, they could bring into play the same sort of referendum that we're seeing in Crimea.
And Jack, are more pro-Russia rallies expected on Saturday?
Yes, they are, Mike. They're expected in Kharkiv to the north as well as here in Donetsk. It's not sure if they will happen tomorrow or on Sunday, but certainly there is an expectation, and those groups, despite those large arrests, have been saying that they will hold a rally. And here the riot police have been beefing up their presence in front of the administrative buildings. Here the main headquarters is now dozens of riot police in front of that building, but also in the past 24 hours they have driven 2 police trucks right up against the doors, pressing those trucks against the doors so that it is actually physically impossible to enter that building from the front. Really a sign of determination here by the riot police to show that they want to keep those protesters out, but also very much an indicator of how determined they believe those protest groups are going to be.
Jack Barton live for us in eastern Ukraine this evening. Thanks so much.